This is the text-to-speech audio version of The Observer by Dark Philosopher. To read the full article, including analysis of trends we're observing and other content, check us out on Substack at darkphilosopher.substack.com or anywhere podcasts are broadcast. Article title: Whispering Influences to Audiences. Article subtitle: How to Use Social Injections to Change Narratives. I want to share another tool from my tool belt, which, if you've read my previous article on time travel, you have undoubtedly noticed it's been a while since I've done so. This particular tool is a little more dangerous in the wrong hands, but considering every spook and spy on the internet already knows this information, it can't be that harmful if you know it. To start, an explanation. Many of you probably share this story. I have been on the internet for most of my life. I had access to my first computer around the age of 10 or so, and a few years later, this glorious network of networks we all spend an ungodly amount of time on rolled in. ICQ and MSN messengers were the first iteration of communication I had the privilege of experiencing, which effectively dates me if you remember those services. Fast forward to 2007, when a peculiar phenomenon came into my perspective. His username was ASCII, and he was a virulent little creature. All he ever did was sling insults and ask leading questions within a forum where I was lurking, and his impact was immeasurable. He wielded a power I've never seen before that extended beyond basic trolling and effectively introduced me to this little tool I will share with you. A tool that has been used against you by people who don't want us to speak. Section title: Uncommon Terms, Thread Pulling, the argumentative/trolling style of seeking any inconsistency, incorrect fact or information, or slightest break in logic, grammar, or spelling that is otherwise irrelevant to the point, and pulling that thread in order to invalidate the entire original comment. Example: well, actually, the war started in 1879, not 1876. High dialect. Communication that involves multiple syllable words, uncommon or complex words, or highbrow language generally reserved for academic or thesis papers and tends towards dry or clinical speech. Example: a poor communicative prognosis inevitably dispatches one towards a satisfactory, though prejudicial, conclusion of anterior malfunction. Low dialect. Communication which usually involves the least amount and complexity of words possible, characterized by simplicity, exclamation points, emoji use, and tends towards emotive speak. Example: bro, use your words, stupid. Like farming. The act of posting comments that are heavily favored by a community in order to generate likes and followers. Parroting. The act of repeating, sometimes verbatim, the commentary or content of the original post to which one is now commenting in the comments. Also commonly referred to as NPC behavior. Example: that thing you said about the thing. Love that. Hyperbolic language. Hyperbole is a rhetorical device or figure of speech that uses exaggeration to emphasize, evokes strong feelings, and creates strong impressions. We start by breaking down the process into 3 parts: discovery, construction, and injection. Section title: Discovery. 1. Scour an online community and begin building a general profile of user types. 2. Identify low dialect users who generate high throughput. 3. Study the types of commentary and the community reaction. To begin, we need to study a particular community to better understand its verbiage user base and its degree of dialectical commentary, which is to say, we need to know if this is a high dialect community or a low dialect community. Reddit is an example of a high dialect community, which promotes more got you comebacks and argumentative posts. Persons who post here are known for thread pulling and utilizing downvoting as a form of silencing opinions that differentiate or oppose active members within the various subreddits. YouTube, Substack, and almost any news service comment section like Flipboard are generally low dialect. These communities and their commentary are usually heavily favored towards parroting the original content or like farming. Twitter falls into the middle of these above examples, except I generally exclude it as a resource given the commentary is algorithmically driven. Therefore, most commentary on any particular post is hidden. User accounts that have produced controversial commentary in the past are shadow banned or hidden behind multiple tabs or dangerous content warnings based on the user who commented, not the comment itself. This means if you attempt to engage with a user you don't know is a marked user, your comment becomes invisible as it's now attached to a near-invisible thread. At least YouTube has the decency to outright delete your post instead of misleading you into thinking you exist and your opinion is visible. Section title: Construction. 1. Take an idea or concept and write a brief. 2. Condense the brief into talking points. 3. Condense the talking points into bite-sized chunks, phrases, or rhymes. Here we want to begin constructing our injection. To take an example from my previous post, repeal the 17th Amendment. Our brief might sound like this.
Our country is facing a massive issue with the creep of democratic ideals which actively seek to threaten our system and way of life. One example of this is the 1913 enacted 17th Amendment, which has destroyed our federal Senate and Congress by introducing populism candidates who spend more time fundraising than they do working for the people.
Thank you, Hudson. From here, we start to condense the idea into talking points such as 1. Country faces looming democratic principle. 2. 17th Amendment has destroyed the Senate by introducing populism. 3. Candidates spend more time fundraising than working for the people. Finally, and most creatively, we seek to turn these points into low dialectic phrases such as 1. Democracy is a death cult. 2. Populism has destroyed Congress. 3. Senators don't work for us anymore. As you notice, our focus in the low dialectic is fashioned towards hyperbolic language, which catches the eye and makes the underlying context better understood by those types of people we target. Phrases like death cult, destroyed, and don't work anymore are eye-catching, where one can quickly and easily agree with the phrase or the sentiment of the phrase without much investigation or thought, while also tapping into the underlying angst of a community and invoking a leading call to action. If, in your investigation of a particular community, you conclude that more positive rhetoric engages the audience, we might rework the phrases like this. 1. The Republic is worth saving. 2. Congress needs our help. 3. Put Congress back to work. Now that we are armed with our brief, our talking points, and some catchphrases, it's time to inject. Section title: Injection. 1. Inject a few talking points as a reply into a parroted comment with an adaptable phrase. 2. Inject the bite-sized phrases as replies into other comments. 3. Wait for the feedback loop. Successful injection of our rhetoric comes in 3 stages which utilize all the previous rhetoric we have built. First, we find a comment thread that is already populated and is likely to attract likes and attention, and within, we look for comments that are parroted from the original content. Ideally, we want to be the first, second, or third reply to that parroted comment, as most people don't scroll down very far into these sub-threads. If a sub-thread generates too much activity, the parrot individual will likely not review the replies to their comment, or will be overwhelmed by the replies and not uptake the message we are injecting. Remember, we are attempting to program the parrot with a message, not convince them of its merits. Our first injection involves a mix of the talking points, for substance, and 1 or 2 of the phrases we developed.
Our country is doomed by the destructive democratic principle. We must resist populism. 17th Amendment has ruined the Senate. Senators don't work for us anymore.
As you can hear, we took our original brief, infused it with a few talking points, maintained some depth, and finished with a strong phrase. You will also notice that this particular quote has some uncommon terminology that many people won't understand. At this stage, we aren't trying to teach them. We are trying to establish superior dialect and therefore the inference of special knowledge or information. Armed with this rhetoric, we can reply to various parroted comments over 3 days or so, modifying the language so each reply we produce doesn't look the same, as that would raise suspicions. Then, we begin our second injection utilizing our vital bite-sized phrases in conjunction to round out a message, such as,
Populism has destroyed Congress. Senators don't work for us anymore. We must repeal the 17th Amendment. Or restore the Republic. Repeal the 17th Amendment.
From here, we can customize the message to fit better into the context of the original comment we reply to. For instance, if the comment is nihilistic, we can offer hope with our rhetoric by phrasing it as more hopeful. Equally, if the comment is encouraging, we can inject more gloom to bring a sense of crisis, which builds an inferred call to action within the parrot and the readers. Section title: Feedback. After our injections, which should be spread across 6 days or more, multiple comments, and multiple content creator comment sections, we now rest the rhetoric and wait for feedback. Given that we can't read every comment in every thread, one must trust the process here and carefully observe for results. One of the more common places where I've observed results is, perhaps surprisingly, the chat within live feeds or videos. Given the fast pace of these comment sections, the commentary is generally limited to quips, emojis, and talking points, which is within our framework for both injections and observation of results and narratives. Section title: Results. You might only sometimes see results, and the results you detect might be heavily modified from your original messaging. The critical thing to remember is that parrots don't always parrot the exact phrases and may even say mildly incorrect things. The reason for this comes down to internalizing the information and their understanding. More complex rhetoric is more likely to be interpreted wrong. Or, in some cases, the parrot may even parrot the opposite rhetoric, which means along the way, someone intervened and provided a correction that the parrot was unable to argue against with your talking points. Looking out further, a variety of tools are available to help track overall impressions of various rhetoric, including Google Trends and search engine optimization search queries to better track performance if you're into that sort of thing. From my experimentations with this social technology, I've only had a few cases where feedback was never achieved. Whether that feedback was directly related to my input or not is entirely up for debate. When I didn't see feedback, I suspected my inputs were too complex or divisive. If one injects new or little utilized ideas into a community, the likelihood of impact dramatically swings toward one's favor. Also, interestingly enough, I've had at least 2 occasions over the years where a user of a targeted community has gone out of their way to complement my contributions within that community. This brings me to a few simple warnings. Don't attempt to inject too much, or else you will develop a reputation for invoking rhetoric, which raises suspicions. An excellent case study example of this is the user named Jeff from the Timcast in Real Life comments section on YouTube, who is often attacked and publicly regarded as a government shill for his endless rhetoric. Aim for the least divisive messaging within a particular community with high emotive language. For best results, seek to minimize connections between your rhetoric and their most valued systems. Example: you wouldn't attempt to inject into a communistic thread the solution of capitalism, but rather, you would steer the communists to develop that conclusion independently, such as introducing anarcho-capitalistic communes. In this sense, you aren't completely invalidating the nonsense of the individual's personal identity, but rather elevating their sense of intellectual and moral superiority, which is a common craving among those disenfranchised types. Continuing, keep it brief. Parrots prefer talking points and language that is emotive, easy to understand and sure to sweet. Anything more than a few sentences risks a loss of effort at best and a turn-off from the rhetoric in any format at worst. Over some time, you may begin to accumulate followers on your account. These should be treated as threats if your intention is only injections from that account. Whereas if you are taking a more passive route or experimentation, remain aware of your exposure as an influencer and the possible negative or positive impacts that may have on your experimentation. In furtherance, if your profile lists the total comments made across the account, be aware that this may have an impact on the perception others will have of you. Reddit and YouTube are notable examples here. Having read all this information, you might suspect me at this point. Perhaps you are asking yourself if this publication is a social injection. The answer to that is yes, but also no. I demand one thing from you, dear reader, to think critically with me. I won't always give you all the information, nor will I take an idea and wrap it into a pretty package and top it off with a bow for your digestion, unlike our framework for social injections. You must take the information, agree or disagree with it as you will, and finalize your opinion on the perspective offered. I will not do these things for you as other writers and media will do. I'm only interested in curating an audience and community of thinkers, not parrots. So, while some articles I write may appear to utilize certain aspects of the above within them, they are not written with that intent. I intend to give you the tools that others use against you, along with those others aren't even aware of. I give you these tools because I want you, dearest reader, to become a better thinker, debater, and, most importantly, a better observer. This world and its future depend on people like us, but most significantly, it depends on people like you. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. You now have another tool for your tool belt you might not have had before. A tool that others in this world seek and have sought to use against you and your communities. Act accordingly. This is the end of the text-to-speech audio version of The Observer by Dark Philosopher. For more content, including our trends analysis, see our Substack at darkphilosopher.substack.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future articles. As always, farewell and good luck. Signed, Dark Philosopher,